Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've got your snacks ready. Maybe some popcorn or a nice hot cup of tea, because today's story is a wild ride. We're leaving the suburbs of America for this one and heading halfway across the world to the tropical heat of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This story comes from Victor. He reached out to me with a tale that is equal parts heartbreaking and incredibly satisfying. It's got everything: a wealthy retirement plan gone wrong, a high society wife with a wandering eye, and a revenge plot so calculated it could only come from a former tech executive. Victor calls this the Kuala Lumpur interchange. He said he wanted to share this because sometimes when you think you're the one holding all the cards, you don't realize your opponent is playing a completely different game until it's too late. If you enjoy stories about cheaters getting caught in 4K resolution and justice being served with a side of tropical humidity, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you're new here, subscribe so you don't miss the update. All right, let's hand the microphone over to Victor. Here is his story in his own words. My name is Victor. I am 54 years old, and for the last 5 years, I've been living what most of my friends back in Minnesota would call the dream. I spent 3 decades in the tech industry, specifically in data center logistics. It was a high-stress, high-reward career that involved a lot of freezing cold server rooms and even colder winters. When I cashed out my stock options and took early retirement, I knew I wanted 2 things: heat and luxury. I didn't want to shovel snow ever again. That's how I ended up in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. I obtained a long-term renewable visa, a program they call Malaysia my second home, and bought a penthouse condominium in the city center. To give you a visual, my living room has floor-to-ceiling glass windows. Every morning, I stand on my balcony with a cup of black coffee and look directly at the Twin Towers. They gleam like silver corn cobs in the sun. The city is a concrete jungle wrapped in actual jungle. It is hot, humid, and loud, but up here on the 40th floor, it is silent and cool. It was supposed to be my paradise, and for a while, it was largely thanks to Casey. I met Casey about 6 months after I arrived. She was 24 then, and I was 49. I know what you're thinking. Rich older American guy, younger local woman, we know how this ends. You probably think I was just a walking ATM to her. And maybe, in hindsight, that's exactly what I was. But at the time, it felt like a partnership. Casey is Chinese-Malaysian, petite, incredibly stylish, and speaks the Queen's English better than I do. She worked in luxury retail when we met, selling watches that cost more than my first car. She was charming, witty, and acted as my bridge to this new culture. She taught me where to find the best street food, the crispy flatbreads with curry sauce, the clay pot chicken rice, without ever making me feel like a clueless tourist. We got married 2 years ago. I provided the lifestyle, the penthouse, the luxury SUV, the credit cards with high limits, and she provided the companionship and the social calendar. She loved the tai lifestyle. That's a local term for a wealthy lady of leisure who spends her days lunching and shopping. She fit the role perfectly. She was always impeccably dressed, her makeup flawless, her hair done in those expensive waves that take 3 hours at a salon. Looking back, that need for perfection should have been my first red flag. Casey was obsessed with face, with how things look to the outside world. Victor, you can't wear those cargo shorts to the mall. People will think we are low class, she would say, handing me a pair of tailored linen trousers instead. Victor, we have to be seen at this charity gala. Everyone who matters will be there. I went along with it because I loved her, or I thought I did. It's easy to love someone when life is a permanent vacation. But every shiny object casts a shadow, and in our lives, that shadow was her sister, Jenny. If Casey was the golden child, Jenny was the black sheep. At least, that was the narrative Casey fed me for 3 years. Jenny is 27, 2 years younger than Casey. According to my wife, Jenny was a disaster. She's asking for money again, Casey would sigh, looking at her phone during dinner at some rooftop steakhouse. She quit her job. Again, she wants to start a freelance graphic design business, but she has no discipline. Does she need help with rent? I'd ask, reaching for my wallet. I'm a problem solver. If there's a problem, I fix it. No. Casey would snap, her hand covering mine. You can't enable her, Victor. She's embarrassed of you anyway. She thinks you're just some rich foreigner I married. She has too much pride to take your money directly. I'll handle it. So I stayed out of it. I rarely saw Jenny. When I did, usually briefly at Chinese New Year or a birthday dinner, she seemed quiet, dressed in simple jeans and t-shirts, looking uncomfortable in the high-end places Casey insisted we eat at. I interpreted her silence as hostility or embarrassment, just like Casey told me to. See? Casey would whisper in the car ride home. She barely spoke to you. She's just jealous of our life. I believed it. Why wouldn't I? I had the data in front of me. Casey was successful and polished. Jenny was struggling and awkward. The shift in our marriage started about 6 months ago, around the beginning of the year. The heat in Malaysia is constant. It hits you like a wet blanket the moment you step outside. Because of this, everything happens indoors or in the evening. Casey decided she needed a new hobby. She joined an extremely exclusive wellness and racket club in a neighborhood called Damansara Heights. This isn't a normal gym. This is a place where the membership fee costs more than the average local annual salary. It has manicured lawn tennis courts, a saltwater infinity pool, and a cafe that serves organic kale smoothies for $15. I want to get fit, Victor, she told me, modeling a white tennis skirt that looked fantastic on her. And it's good for networking. The Dattons, that's the titled wives of dignitaries, hang out there. Go for it, I said. Have fun. Suddenly, Casey was at the club 5, sometimes 6 days a week. She became obsessed with tennis. She hired a private coach. She started talking about core stability and mental fortitude. My coach says I have natural talent. She'd beam over dinner. He says I should enter the mixed doubles tournament next month. That's great, honey. What's the coach's name? Brian, she said. He's an expat too, from the UK. He really pushes me. I didn't think much of it. I was happy she had a passion. I spent my days managing my investment portfolio, reading, and exploring the city's coffee scene. I trusted her, but I'm a logistics guy. My entire career was built on spotting patterns and anomalies in supply chains. If a shipment from Taiwan was delayed by 4 hours, I wanted to know why. If a server rack was consuming 2% more power than usual, I investigated. The first anomaly popped up on a Tuesday evening in April. Casey came home around 9 p.m. She claimed she had done a grueling 3-hour session on the courts under the floodlights. She walked through the door carrying her tennis bag, her racket slung over her shoulder. I am dead, she groaned, kicking off her expensive sneakers. Brian destroyed my backhand today. I need a shower. She walked past the sofa where I was watching the news. As she passed, a draft of air followed her. I sniffed. I expected the smell of sweat, maybe the rubbery scent of tennis balls, or the chlorine from the club showers. Instead, I smelled vanilla, old leather, and the distinct heavy aroma of cigar smoke. I paused the TV. Did you smoke a cigar? I asked, confused. Casey hated smoking. She wouldn't even let me smoke a cigar on the balcony on New Year's Eve. She froze halfway to the hallway. She didn't turn around immediately. It took her about 2 seconds, a processing delay. Oh, that, she said, turning with a tired smile. No, God, no. It was the erratic old man on the court next to us. Some dado, a titled rich guy. He was puffing away on a massive cigar right by the fence while we were drilling. The smoke got everywhere. It was disgusting. I need to wash my hair immediately. Makes sense, I said. And it did make sense. This is Malaysia. Rules are often suggestions here, especially for the wealthy. A rich guy smoking on a tennis court wasn't impossible. But the vanilla scent? That was cologne. Men's cologne. Expensive stuff. Not the kind of thing that drifts over from a neighboring court. That's the kind of scent that transfers upon contact. I didn't say anything else. I let her go shower. But that night, as I lay in bed listening to the hum of the air conditioning, a small, cold knot formed in my stomach. That was the data point, the anomaly. Then came the sister excuse. 2 days later, on a Thursday, Casey texted me at 4 p.m. Baby, I won't be home for dinner. Jenny just called. She's having a crisis. Her landlord is threatening to kick her out or something. I have to go to her apartment in Cheras and calm her down. She's hysterical. I texted back, okay, do you need me to wire her some cash? I can help. Her reply was instant. No, she will be offended. I'll handle it. Don't wait up. I sat on the balcony, looking out at the city lights flickering on as the sun went down. Cheras was a suburb about 30 minutes away, a middle-class, crowded area. Very different from our Golden Triangle. I took a sip of my wine. The logistics coordinator in my brain was waking up. Variables. A wife who smells like men's cologne. A sudden obsession with a tennis coach named Brian. And now, a sudden emergency involving the sister who supposedly hates me and whom I'm not allowed to help. It was time to audit the supply chain. If you've never experienced traffic in Kuala Lumpur, let me paint you a picture. It's not just congestion. It is a parking lot where people occasionally inch forward. A 10-mile drive can take an hour. If it rains, make that 2 hours. This traffic became the foundation of Casey's new favorite narrative. Starting in late April, the Ginny crisis went from a monthly occurrence to a weekly recurring event. It was fascinating, really. If Ginny were actually as disastrous as Casey claimed, the girl shouldn't be allowed to own a houseplant, let alone operate a motor vehicle. The excuses were creative. Ginny's car overheated on the highway. Casey told me one Tuesday, rushing out the door. Ginny's boyfriend dumped her, and she's threatening to cut her own hair off, she said on a Friday night. Ginny's apartment has a leak, and she doesn't know how to turn off the water main, she claimed the following Monday. Now, I'm a guy who fixes things. That's what I do. You don't manage logistics for data centers without learning how to solve problems efficiently. So, naturally, I try to help. I'll call my mechanic. I offered when the car supposedly broke down. He has a tow truck. I'll put it on my card. No, Casey snapped, putting on her earrings a little too aggressively. She's already stressed. She doesn't want a stranger handling her car. I'll go. Okay, I said during the plumbing incident. I know a contractor. He does emergency calls. I'll send him over. Victor, stop, she yelled. She's embarrassed about her apartment. She doesn't want you sending some high-end contractor to judge her messy place. Why do you always have to throw money at everything? I sat back on the sofa, holding my hands up in surrender. I'm just trying to be a good brother-in-law. Well, don't, she huffed. Just let me handle my family. And off she would go, usually smelling of that expensive French perfume, wearing an outfit that seemed a little too well-coordinated for someone going to mop up leak water or console a crying sister. I'm not a jealous man by nature. Jealousy is an emotional waste of energy. But I'm a man who respects data, and the data was starting to look statistically impossible. If a server in my old data center failed 3 times in a week, we didn't just reboot it. We investigated the root cause. Ginny was failing 3 times a week. The breaking point, or rather, the moment the blindfold truly slipped off, happened on a stormy Thursday evening in May. It was monsoon season. In Malaysia, when it rains, it doesn't just sprinkle. The sky opens up and drops the entire ocean on your head. Thunder was shaking the glass walls of our condo. Lightning was striking the lightning rods on the skyscrapers around us. It was biblical. Casey came into the living room. She was wearing tight yoga pants and a fitted top, athleisure, I think they call it. She looked fantastic. She also looked like she was going on a date, not a rescue mission. I have to go, she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. Ginny just called. She's having a panic attack because of the storm. Her power is out. I looked at the window. The rain was smashing against the glass so hard it sounded like gravel. Casey, it's dangerous out there, I said, standing up. The roads will be flooded. You can't drive the SUV in this visibility. I have to, Victor. She's my sister. Fine, I said. I'll drive you. She froze. What? I'll drive you. I repeated, walking toward the key bowl. I'm a better driver in bad weather. I'll drop you off at Ginny's place. I'll wait in the car or go grab a coffee nearby, and I'll bring you back when she's calm. It makes no sense for you to drive alone. It was a logical offer, a kind offer. Casey looked at me like I had just suggested we sacrifice the dog. Her face went from surprise to furious in a nanosecond. Why are you so controlling? She screamed. I blinked. I'm offering a ride. In a monsoon. You just want to spy on me, she shouted, her voice echoing in the large apartment. You don't trust me. You think I'm making it up? You think I'm lying? God, Victor, you are so suffocating. This is why Ginny hates you. You always have to insert yourself into everything. She grabbed the keys to the Mercedes SUV, stomped out the front door, and slammed it so hard the frame rattled. I stood there in the silence of the apartment, the thunder rumbling outside. Controlling. That's the word people use when they want you to stop looking at what they're doing. I didn't chase her. I didn't call her. Instead, I walked over to the kitchen island where her iPad was charging. We shared a digital calendar, synced to our phones, so we could coordinate dinners and trips. I unlocked the iPad. I didn't look at her messages. I didn't look at her photos. I just looked at the calendar. They are blocked out in soft pink, were the entries for tonight and the previous crises. They were labeled simply, Jenny Support. Then, I walked over to the recycling bin in the pantry. I dug out the glossy brochure for the Wellness and Racket Club that she had brought home weeks ago. I hadn't paid much attention to it then, but I remembered seeing a schedule on the back. I smoothed out the crumpled paper on the granite countertop. Thursday nights, Elite Mixed Doubles Clinic with head coach Brian, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Tuesday nights, private technical coaching, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. I looked at the iPad. Tuesday, Jenny Support, 7:30 p.m. Thursday, Jenny Support, 6:45 p.m. The correlation was perfect, a 100% match. I wasn't angry yet. That's the strange thing. I just felt a cold, hard click in my brain. The same feeling I used to get when I finally found the broken line of code that was crashing the system. Okay, Casey, I whispered to the empty room. You want to play games? Let's see who keeps score better. In the corporate world, I live by a simple maxim. In God we trust. All others must bring data. I wasn't going to blow up my marriage based on a hunch and a brochure I found in the recycling bin. I needed concrete proof, hard evidence, the kind of data that stands up in court, or at least shuts down a gaslighting argument in a living room. Fortunately, modern convenience is the enemy of secrecy. If you want to track someone's movements in the United States, you might stick a GPS tracker on their bumper like a character in a bad detective movie. In Malaysia, you don't need to do that. The government and the highway concessionaires do it for you. Here, we use a system called Touch and Go. It's a prepaid card linked to an e-wallet app on your phone. You use it for everything: parking, tolls, public transit. And crucially, every single toll gate transaction is logged in the app with a timestamp and location. The next morning, Casey was exhausted from her emotional night with Jenny. She slept in until 11 a.m. While she was snoring softly in the master bedroom, I sat on the balcony with my iPad and a fresh espresso. I had set up Casey's wallet on my phone initially to make sure it was always topped up. I opened the app. I tapped on transaction history. I scrolled back to the previous night. Remember, Jenny lives in Cheras. Cheras is to the east of the city. To get there from our place, you take the Akla Highway or the MRR2. The log for 7:15 p.m. showed a toll deduction. But it wasn't the Cheras toll. Toll Plaza, Peninsula Link. I stared at the screen. The Peninsula Link is a highway that shoots you straight west into the heart of Mont Kiara. For those who don't know Kuala Lumpur, Mont Kiara is expat central. It's a bubble of luxury condos, international schools, and cafes that charge $6 for a latte. It is exactly the opposite direction of where Jenny lives. I checked the previous dates, the Tuesdays, the Thursdays, the sudden crises. Peninsula Link, Peninsula Link, Peninsula Link. She wasn't going to the slums of Cheras to comfort her sister. She was driving to the Beverly Hills of KL to play house. But a toll log only proves location, not intent. Maybe she really liked the coffee in Mont Kiara? Unlikely, but I needed to be sure. I waited until Casey left for a lunch date with her girlfriends. Once the elevator doors closed, I went down to the parking garage. I approached the Mercedes. I had installed a high-end Dashcam in that car myself. I insisted on the dual-channel model that records both the road ahead and the cabin inside. For security, I had told her, in case you get carjacked. She had rolled her eyes and called me paranoid. I popped the micro SD card out of the camera and went back upstairs to my office. I plugged the card into my laptop. The files were organized by date. I clicked on the file from last night. The video player opened. I saw the interior of the car in grainy black and white night vision. Casey was driving. She looked annoyed, checking her makeup in the rearview mirror. Then the audio kicked in. The car stopped. A door opened. A man slid into the passenger seat. "Hey, babe," a British accent said. Smooth. Cocky. God, he was so annoying tonight, Casey's voice replied. He wanted to drive me. Can you believe that? He almost ruined everything. But he didn't. The man, Brian, I presumed, laughed. He reached over. I saw his hand on her thigh in the video. Because he's a gullible, old ATM. My jaw tightened, but I kept watching. Did you tell him the sister excuse? Brian asked. Yeah. Jenny is having a crisis. It works every time. He thinks she's such a mess. It's hilarious. He actually offered to pay for a plumber for her last week. They both laughed. A cruel, mocking sound that echoed in my quiet office. We need to book the trip to Redong soon, Brian said. I can't keep doing this in the condo. I want you on a beach. I'm working on it, Casey said. I'll tell him Jenny is, I don't know, going to rehab or something. I'll say I need to go support her for a weekend. You're wicked, Brian chuckled. I'm resourceful, she corrected him. I stopped the video. I didn't need to see the rest. I had the location. I had the confession. I had the motive. And most painfully, I had the confirmation that my wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively using her sister's reputation as a doormat to wipe her feet on before stepping out. I needed one last thing. Visuals. The toll log showed she usually spent about 3 hours in Malaysia. The next day, Saturday, she claimed she had a brunch with the girls. I tracked the car via the app. It went straight to a high-end condominium complex in Malaysia called the Arcturus. I took a grab car, the local Uber, and had him drop me off at a cafe across the street. I sat there for an hour, sweating in the humidity, nursing a lukewarm iced tea. And then, there they were. They walked out of the lobby together. Brian was tall, fit, looking exactly like the kind of tennis pro who sleeps with his clients. He had his arm around her waist. Casey was laughing, looking more alive than she had looked with me in years. They walked into a bakery 2 doors down. I snapped 3 photos with my phone. Clear, undeniable. I looked at the picture on my screen. My wife, the woman I had given the world to, looking adoringly at a man who called me an ATM. A younger man might have stormed across the street and thrown a punch. A more emotional man might have called her right then and screamed. But I wasn't young, and I wasn't emotional anymore. I was a logistics coordinator, and I had just identified a major inefficiency in my supply chain. It was time to liquidate the asset. But first, I had a loose end to tie up. A loose end named Jenny. If Casey was using her as a shield, I wondered if Jenny knew she was being used. I pulled up Jenny's number, which I only had because of a group chat Casey made 2 years ago for a birthday, and hit dial. I texted Jenny on a Monday morning. It was short and professional. Hi, Jenny. This is Victor. I need to buy you lunch. Mandarin Oriental Lobby Lounge. Noon. Please don't tell Casey. She took 20 minutes to reply. Am I in trouble? Did Casey tell you about the printer money? I stared at the phone. Printer money? I had no idea what that was, but it was just another line item in the ledger of lies I was uncovering. No trouble, I replied. Just lunch. I insist. I arrived early. The Mandarin Oriental is right next to the Petronas Towers. It's the kind of place with chandeliers the size of small cars and air conditioning cold enough to preserve meat. I sat in a plush velvet armchair, watching the door. Based on Casey's stories, I was expecting a train wreck. I half expected Jenny to walk in wearing pajama pants, holding a lit cigarette, perhaps accompanied by a parole officer. Instead, at 11:55 a.m., a young woman walked in wearing a sharp navy blazer, fitted trousers, and sensible heels. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. She carried a laptop bag that looked well-worn but professional. She looked around nervously, spotted me, and stiffened. She walked over like she was approaching a judge's bench. Hi, Victor, she said, her voice small. I can pay you back for the printer. I just needed it for a freelance gig, and Casey said you wouldn't mind loaning the cash, but... Jenny, I interrupted gently, standing up to shake her hand. Sit down. I don't care about the printer. Order whatever you want. The Wagyu burger is good. She sat on the edge of the chair, clutching her bag. Is Casey okay? Is she sick? Casey is fine. I said, unfolding my napkin. In fact, Casey is doing great. She's playing a lot of tennis. Jenny frowned. Tennis? Casey hates sweating. She says it ruins her pores. Apparently, she's had a change of heart, I said. I took a sip of water. Jenny, I'm going to ask you some questions. They might sound weird. Just answer them honestly. I'm not going to get mad at you. She nodded, looking terrified. How is your car? I asked. My car. She blinked. It's fine. It's a 2022 Honda. I just got it serviced. It didn't break down on the highway last Tuesday night in the rain? No, she said slowly. I was at home watching Netflix. In your apartment, I continued. How's the eviction going? Her jaw dropped. Eviction? I'm not being evicted. I own my studio. I mean, the bank owns it, but I pay the mortgage every month. Who told you I was being evicted? And the mental breakdown you had last Thursday? The one where you threatened to cut all your hair off? Jenny touched her bun reflexively. Her confusion was morphing into something else. Indignation. Victor, are you crazy? I haven't had a breakdown since I failed math in high school. I run a graphic design business. I have clients. I'm busy. I sat back. The final piece of the puzzle slotted into place. So, I said, keeping my voice level, you're not a disastrous, broke, emotionally unstable mess who needs her big sister to come save her 3 nights a week? Is that what she tells you? Jenny's voice rose an octave. She tells you I'm a mess? She tells me a lot of things, Jenny. She tells me she spends her evenings comforting you. She tells me she can't bring you around because you're ashamed of your failures compared to her success. Jenny's face went red. Not embarrassed red, angry red. The kind of anger that comes from years of being the family scapegoat. That which she hissed. She used a much more colorful Cantonese word, actually. I haven't seen Casey in 2 months. The last time we spoke, she asked me to borrow 2,000 ringgit for a spa package she didn't want you to see on the credit card statement. I let out a dry chuckle. Of course. The printer money. I pulled out my phone. I didn't show her the video. That felt too violating, but I showed her the toll logs and the photo of Casey and Brian at the bakery. She's having an affair, I said simply, with a tennis coach. She's been using you as her alibi. Every time she says she's helping you, she's with him. She's funding this lifestyle with my money, and she's buying her freedom by selling your reputation. Jenny stared at the photo. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. She told our parents I was struggling, Jenny whispered, the realization hitting her. Mom called me last week asking if I needed money for groceries. I thought she was just being an overbearing Chinese mother. But it was Casey. Casey planted the seed, so her lies would hold up. She looked up at me. She made me look like a loser to cover her tracks. Exactly, I said. She managed the logistics perfectly. She created a villain, you, so she could be the hero, all while being the villain herself. Jenny took a deep breath. She picked up the menu, looked at it, and then put it down. She looked me dead in the eye. I don't want the burger, she said. I want to destroy her. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. I like the way you think, Jenny. I'm planning a divorce. A very, very painful one for her, financially speaking. But I think we can do better than just serving papers. What do you have in mind? She asked. There's a public holiday coming up next week, I said. I have a feeling Casey is going to tell me that you are having a massive crisis that day. Maybe a suicide attempt. Something big that requires her to be away all day and night. Jenny nodded, her eyes narrowing. She'll want to go to that resort. She posted a picture of a bikini on her private Instagram yesterday. I want to catch her, I said. But not at the hotel. That's too cliché. I want to catch her in the lie. I want her to come home expecting to find a gullible husband, and instead find the sister she threw under the bus. Jenny leaned in. I have a key to her old storage unit. I know where she hides the good, wine she pretends she doesn't drink. Jenny, I said, signaling the waiter. I think you and I are going to get along just fine. Let's order lunch. We have some logistics to plan. We spent the next hour mapping it out. It was beautiful. I watched a young woman reclaim her narrative in real time. She wasn't a mess. She was the missile. And I was about to launch her. They say divorce is expensive because it's worth it. But if you plan it right, it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be logistical. I spend my days moving funds. My wealth was mostly in offshore accounts from my pre-marriage days, protected by a trust. However, I had a liquid joint account for household expenses, the one Casey used to buy her guilt-free organic kale and pay for her sister support gas money. I didn't drain it. That would raise a flag. Instead, I stopped the auto-replenishment. I let it drift down naturally, like a slow leak in a tire. I also contacted the landlord of the condo. Technically, the lease was in my name, and I paid the rent annually. I informed him I wouldn't be renewing. Meanwhile, Jenny and I were communicating via an encrypted messaging app. We were like two spies planning a coup, except our target was a woman whose biggest concern was tan lines. On the Tuesday before the holiday, Casey dropped the bomb. She walked into the living room, looking visibly distressed. She even forced a single tear out of her left eye. It was an impressive performance. "It's bad, Victor," she whispered, sinking onto the sofa. She's in a really dark place. She called me screaming. She says she has nothing to live for. She's talking about ending it. I put on my best concerned face. "That's terrible. Should we call the police? Or an ambulance?" "No." Casey shot up. "No police. It would shame the family. I have to go stay with her. I need to be on suicide watch. I'm going to stay at her place for the entire holiday weekend. Just me and her. I need to confiscate her pills and just hold her." "You're a saint, Casey," I said. "Go. Take the SUV. Do what you have to do." She hugged me. I smelled the anticipation on her. It smelled like coconut sunscreen. The morning of the holiday, Casey packed a bag. She tried to make it look like a sad overnight bag. Sweatpants, oversized t-shirts. But I watched her sneak a smaller, floral tote bag into the bottom of the trunk earlier that morning. "I'll text you when I can," she said, kissing my cheek. "But I might be unresponsive. Dealing with a mental health crisis takes all my focus." "I understand," I said. "Don't worry about me." She drove off. I waited 5 minutes, then opened the tracking app. She didn't go to Cheras. She didn't even pretend to go east. She drove straight to Mont Kiara to the Arcourse. I watched the little dot park in the visitor lot. A few hours later, the dot moved, Brian's car, presumably, heading north toward the highway that leads to the coastal resorts. "Protocol executed," I muttered to the empty room. I called Jenny. "She's gone. You can come over." Jenny arrived an hour later. It was the first time she had ever been inside the penthouse. Casey had successfully banned her from the premises for 3 years. Jenny walked in, carrying 2 large plastic bags filled with food. She looked around at the marble floors, the Italian leather furniture, and the panoramic view of the Twin Towers. "Wow," she said, kicking off her sneakers. "It looks like a hotel lobby in here. No wonder she didn't want me visiting. My poverty might stain the rug." "Make yourself at home," I said. "Did you bring the supplies?" "Satay Kajong," she grinned, lifting the bags. 30 sticks of beef, 30 chicken, and extra spicy peanut sauce. Plus, I brought some beers. Real beers, not that low-carb seltzer Casey drinks. We spent the afternoon staging the scene. We didn't want it to look like an ambush. We wanted it to look like a party she wasn't invited to. We set up the balcony table. We laid out the satay, the pressed rice cubes, the cucumbers. We opened a bottle of wine, a vintage red that Casey had been saving for a special occasion. "Is it petty to drink her wine?" Jenny asked, pouring a glass. "It's not her wine," I corrected. "I bought it. And I can't think of a more special occasion than the truth coming out." As the sun began to set, the city of Kuala Lumpur transformed. The heat broke slightly, replaced by a warm breeze. The lights of the Petronas Towers turned on, glowing like 2 giant crystals against the purple sky. We sat there, eating satay and talking. I learned that Jenny was actually hilarious. She told me horror stories about her freelance clients and how she had once designed a logo for a durian farm that insisted the fruit look sexy. "You know," Jenny said, wiping peanut sauce from her lip, "I always thought you were some grumpy old tyrant." That's how she described you. "Victor the fun sponge." I laughed. "And I thought you were a walking disaster zone." "Jenny the money pit." "We really should have compared notes sooner," she said. "Better late than never." Around 9 p.m., I checked the tracker. The dot was moving back toward the city. "They're coming back early?" Jenny asked, seeing my face. Trouble in paradise, maybe, I said. Or maybe Brian got tired of her suicide watch roleplay. The dot got closer. It entered the city limits. Then, it headed toward our building. She's coming here, I said, feeling my pulse tick up a notch. Not from fear, but from adrenaline. She's probably dropping off the car or grabbing something she forgot. Or maybe she wants to show off her exhaustion to you before going back to Brian's, Jenny suggested. Get ready, I said. We cleared away the beer cans, but left the wine and the feast. We made it look intimate, comfortable, like we've been doing this for years. I turned on the jazz playlist on the surround sound system. Low, smooth, sophisticated. I lit the citronella candles on the balcony. Okay, I said, sitting back in a lounge chair and crossing my legs. Remember the plan. Jenny smirked, picking up a skewer of beef satay. I'm just here to support my brother-in-law. I'm the supportive sister, remember? We heard the front door lock beep. The heavy wooden door swung open. Victor, Casey's voice drifted down the hallway. She sounded weary, practiced. I had to come home for a change of clothes. Jenny finally fell asleep, but it was so draining. She walked into the living room, rubbing her temples, her eyes closed in feigned exhaustion. I don't think I can take much more of. She opened her eyes. She stopped. She looked at the balcony. She saw the candles. She saw the wine. She saw me. And then she saw Jenny. Jenny took a bite of satay, chewed slowly, and waved with the skewer. Hey, sis, Jenny chirped. You're back early. I thought you were watching me sleep. The silence that followed was louder than the thunder from the monsoon. It was the sound of a carefully constructed reality shattering into a million expensive pieces. I took a sip of wine. Welcome home, honey, I said. How was the suicide watch? You look tan. I have seen servers crash. I have seen logistics chains collapse due to typhoons. But I have never seen a human operating system crash as hard as Casey's did in that moment. She stood in the center of the living room, clutching her sad overnight bag. Her brain was visibly buffering. She looked at Jenny, who was casually dipping a piece of chicken into spicy peanut sauce. Then she looked at me, swirling my wine. Then back at Jenny. Casey started, her voice cracking. I don't understand. Jenny, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be suicidal. Jenny finished for her. I know. It was news to me too. I thought I was just having a quiet night in, maybe watching a documentary. But apparently, I was on a ledge. Casey, I said, my voice calm, almost bored. You're home early. Did the suicide watch shift end? Or did Brian just get tired of you complaining about the humidity at the resort? The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a ghost. Who is Brian? She stammered. It was a reflex lie. Muscle memory. Brian, I said, counting on my fingers. British. Tennis coach. Drives a silver Mazda. Lives at the R Chorus in Montkiera. The guy you've been visiting every Tuesday and Thursday while pretending to save your disaster of a sister. Casey dropped her bag. It hit the marble floor with a heavy thud. You've been spying on me, she screeched. The sadness vanished, replaced instantly by indignation. You tracked me? That is illegal. That is stalking. It's not stalking, I corrected. It's quality assurance. And frankly, your performance has been subpar. And you, she whirled on Jenny. You traitor. I have taken care of you your whole life. I tell everyone how much I help you. And this is how you repay me? By conspiring with him. Jenny stood up. She wiped her hands on a napkin, stood to her full height, which wasn't much, but she looked 10 feet tall right then. Taking care of me? Jenny laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. Casey, you haven't bought me lunch in 3 years. You used me as a sob story to make yourself look like a saint so you could cheat on your husband. You told Mom I was a failure so she wouldn't ask why you were never home. You didn't take care of me. You used me as human camouflage. Casey scoffed. Please, you are a mess. Look at you. You're eating street food in a penthouse. You don't belong here. Actually, I interjected. She does. I invited her. You, however, are currently trespassing. I reached under the table and pulled out a manila envelope. I placed it next to the satay. What is that? Casey asked, eyeing it warily. That, I said, is a notice. Since we are in Malaysia, the legal system here regarding divorce can be complicated. But lucky for us, we signed a prenuptial agreement in the States that references asset division based on at-fault conduct, which we legally notarized here when we bought the condo. I took a sip of wine. Clause 4, Section B. Infidelity proven by digital or physical evidence results in the immediate forfeiture of residency rights in marital properties held solely in the primary earner's name. You're kicking me out? She looked around the room, panic finally setting in. Tonight? It's a public holiday. When am I supposed to go? I don't know. I shrugged. Maybe Jenny can help you? Oh, wait. She's busy eating satay. Maybe you can go to your parents? Oh, wait. You told them you were with Jenny. So if you show up there alone, you'll have to explain why this suicidal sister is currently drinking wine with your husband. I pointed toward the door. My guess? Brian has a pull-out couch. Although, judging by the audio on the dashcam, he doesn't seem like the commitment type. He called me an ATM, remember? If the ATM stops dispensing cash, I wonder how long he'll keep the card. Casey stared at me. She looked at the envelope. Then she looked at the view of the Twin Towers one last time. The realization hit her. The lifestyle, the status, the tie-tie existence, it was gone. She tried one last Hail Mary. The tears returned. Victor, she sobbed, taking a step toward me. Baby, please. It was a mistake. I was lonely. You're always so cold, so logical. I just wanted to feel something. We can fix this. I'll stop seeing him. I'll quit the club. I looked at her. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I just felt done. Casey, I said, you didn't just cheat. You lied about your own blood to do it. That's a special kind of broken that I can't fix. And frankly, I don't want to fix it. I'm retired. I don't do maintenance anymore. I pulled out my phone. I called a grab for you. It's waiting in the lobby. You have 5 minutes to gather whatever fits in that bag. The rest of your stuff will be sent to a storage unit. I'll text you the code. You can't do this, she screamed. I can't, I said. I'm a logistics coordinator. I decide where the package goes. And this package is being returned to sender. She stood there for a moment, trembling with rage. Then, she grabbed her bag. She didn't look at Jenny. She walked to the door, opened it, and turned back. You're going to die alone in this aquarium, Victor, she spat. Maybe, I said, but I'll die with a balanced ledger and excellent credit. She slammed the door. The silence that followed was exquisite. Jenny let out a long, low whistle. Damn. Return to sender. That was cold, Victor. Ice cold. Too much. I asked. No. She grinned, picking up her wine glass. Just right. We walked out to the balcony. Down below, on the street, we saw a small figure get into a white sedan and drive away into the humid Kuala Lumpur night. So, Jenny said, leaning on the railing. What now? Now. I looked at the Twin Towers. Now, I finished my wine. I might join a different gym. Maybe pick up pickleball. I hear it's less dramatic. I can design you a t-shirt, Jenny offered. Victor, retired, divorced, and logistically sound. I'll pay you for it, I said. Full rate. No printer money. We clinked glasses. The humidity was high, the city was loud, but up there on the 40th floor, the air had never felt cleaner. What do you guys think? Was Victor too harsh with the immediate eviction, or was it the perfect amount of petty justice? And seriously, would you have the guts to eat satay while your cheating spouse walked in? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story from the tropics, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the algorithm find more stories like this. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and check your toll logs. You never know where they might lead.